Hi everyone, Blender 4.5 LTS is now here, and as usual we're going to take a look through the features, but this time we've got a few more people joining us in the video. Basically I'll be telling you the features as usual, but every now and again someone's going to throw in an opinion, and I'm just letting you know so you don't get surprised by random voices. This is a really big update, lots of really cool things, so let's get into it. So your best companion, with 2 years of updates, full Vulkan support and quality of life improvements, Blender 4.5 LTS is every Blender head's best friend. So this is an LTS release version, meaning that it's long-term support, and that basically gives studios confidence if they want to stick with a version that will be maintained for a little while longer than the usual release cadence, and it also means that it should be more stable. So there's a general recap video, and what they've done is they get Jonathan Lampel and a bunch of other popular Blender creators to present some of the features. It's very nice and community involved, so I recommend giving that a watch there. And then, you see, while I'm doing this, I don't know, oh, you're all muted. You're literally muted.
No.
Are you just going to watch me do it? Are you just going to watch me?
No. We are fine with jumping in and giving our thoughts.
I feel weird about talking in your video.
So let's scroll down to the Vulkan section. Blend me up. So this is quite a big thing because Vulkan is now the main driver for EEVEE. Actually, let me just check with that. Do I have anyone in my ear who can confirm this for me out of interest? Was EEVEE Vulkan based before 4.5? What's the sudden jump to Vulkan now? Just before I read it.
I think Vulkan has been supported in the previous version as well, but it wasn't not completely full. But now I think it works properly.
Yeah,
with EEVEE.
They started the development in 2023, I think.
Alongside with EEVEE next, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. The final frontier. After years of work, support for the popular backend in Blender is now on par with OpenGL. Oh, so I see that we can choose the backend now. So that'll be under Edit Preferences, and then that should be. Hold on, it's not showing exactly where it is.
System.
Yeah, it would be under System. Yeah. Make sure to keep your drivers up to date. Blender works closely with hardware manufacturers to ensure Vulkan performs as good as possible. So that's really good to hear. I mean, I don't really get to use EEVEE as much anymore. I mean, mostly for my projects, I'm stuck using cycles because of the, complexity of lighting projects, emissive shader-based lighting and stuff like that, which kind of has come to EEVEE slightly over time with the screen space global illumination, but it's still not great. And also one of the things that, I really want to see more of from EEVEE is just faster shader compilation times. I think we do have that now, actually. Gleb Alexandrov did a nice demonstration in the release video, so it's worth taking a look. So that's really cool to see. So moving on, we have geometry nodes. Now, geometry nodes has had a lot of attention in this, and Harry Blends has done a lovely segment in the release video, but there's not just new functionality, but also new kind of presentation changes to the nodes. So some of it is really condensed, meaning that the nodes are going to look much more readable and easy to see. But on the functionality side of it, I should really try and bring in a little word from Ben, because Ben has contributed a couple of nodes to this. So I might insert a little segment here talking to him. So Ben, what nodes have you worked on for geometry nodes? What's been included? Is there any important information that you think people should know about?
So the nodes I worked on were the camera info and instance bounds nodes. So the camera info node gets data from the camera, like the projection matrix, focal length, all that kind of stuff. And then the instance bounds node gives you the bounds of the geometry set that an instance is using, making it much more efficient than previous methods.
So mix and match. Assemble your scenes by importing all kinds of files. So there's more functionality for importing data into geometry nodes, which is great. So we've got CSVs, PLYs, OpenVDBs, STLs, wavefront, and text files. So I can imagine myself probably using this because I want to get into more scientific visualization, and I've got tons of data in CSV files, so that might be cool to play with. Drag and drop. Import files by dragging and dropping them into the geometry node editor. Oh, really? That's cool. Hold on, is that? Oh, so that's like a separate file explorer window. So you don't need to go through file, import, etc. You can just drag them straight in. Smart sequencing. When combined with the new format string node, importing sequences is as flexible as it gets. So I'm in a lot of calls with other Blender creators quite often, and we're always coming up with lists of things we want to see in geometry nodes. One of the more popular ones is trying to do mathematical expressions or script nodes and stuff like that. So I feel like we're kind of stepping in that direction with all of this. So it'd be cool to see in the future how geometry nodes keeps expanding. So the new normal, I've seen a cool demo with this where custom mesh normals are now editable in geometry nodes with the new set mesh normal node. And a demonstration that they show, oh, it's actually being shown here, is how if you blend it correctly, correctly, you can effectively get like a soft blending, almost like a bevel effect, without actually affecting the base topology at all, which is really cool to see. Moving on, we've got grease nodes. So this is integrating the grease pencil datasets with geometry nodes. So grease pencil creation with geometry nodes just got better, including added support for custom node tools, plus these new nodes. Set grease pencil color, grease pencil depth, grease pencil softness, and additionally the named layer selection node now supports search. Node tools. Custom node tools are now easier to organize thanks to support for collapsible panels, including the use of Boolean sockets as checkboxes in their headers, just like the native built-in operators. So node tools are really cool. Again, it's kind of taking over the Python space of things a bit, because now Geometry Nodes has so many features, especially when it comes to node tools, that you might not need to make an add-on for something that you did need to make an add-on for in the past, especially if it's just like a simple operation for modifying a mesh. So that's really cool to see. All new nodes. Blender 4.5 LTS brings a solid set of new geometry nodes focused on data access and string handling. So again, mentioning that there are a whole bunch of new nodes. And then to show things off here, we've got some community demos, including the one and only Ben.
That chips animation is just top tier. It looks amazing.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
I can't even believe that's geometry nodes. Like, how the hell? Yeah.
And oh, there's more. So it's like all different kinds of like frying animations.
This one looks more like candy, but still, like my statement stands.
It looks edible. Amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna eat it. Yeah.
Cool.
I think they tried very much into the soap bubble stuff, and it looks really beautiful.
Yeah. So who's this again? Shimu. Cool. I saw Jesse's liquid one. That's really cool as well.
Yeah, that's really cool as well. Yeah. I think depending upon the velocity that they're moving, they are adding bubbles inside it, which is really, really clever.
Yeah. Sadly, I can't play Ben's one. Oh, okay. So it's an external link. Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
Galaxy Sim.
Nice.
Cool. All right, so it's always nice to see community contributions there. And scrolling down, we've got some performance information. So the vertex to edge attribute domain interpolation is 1.7 times faster. Corner to vertex attribute is 1.4 times faster. Face to vertex 7 times. Face, corner, and custom normals are twice as fast. So I've heard about some other performance improvements, which are probably going to be mentioned a bit later on. But in particular, I've heard that adaptive subdivision in cycles has had some big improvements. So hopefully we'll get to see that. So what's next? Get a glimpse of what's to come to geometry nodes, spoiler alert, hair dynamics and physics. So you can read the blog post there. I like how they keep us involved, and there's even more changes. So this often happens with these update pages, that there's just so much happening that they just can't like fit it all in. Sometimes I found that the smaller things make sometimes the largest like user experience change. So it is definitely worth having a quick read through them if you can. So EEVEE and Viewport, start me up fast. Blender 4.5 LTS is noticeably faster thanks to performance improvements such as faster texture loading, quicker startup times, and multi-threaded shader compilation by default on supported platforms. So I like the style of the graphs I always put here, but we can see the comparison between 4.5 LTS and 4.4, generally for the startup time and texture loading. A new user preference allows choosing between multi-threaded and sub-process compilation, because multi-threaded might not always be appropriate depending on your particular hardware setup, so choice is great. So hasta la vista, this is to do with shadows. As we can see here that we have a bias and without bias. Basically the bias is a new feature. A new shadow terminator bias has been introduced, helping eliminate self-shadowing artifacts on low polygon geometry. This is a per object setting to shift the shadowed position along the shading normal. Sound familiar? Cycles introduced this feature in Blender 3.0 and it has now become a global setting shared by both engines. So that's cool to have parity between the rendering engines. More EEVEE and Viewport. Reverse Z, new algorithm to reduce depth buffer artifacts. Shadow normal issues have been fixed. GPU-based subdivision, that's good. Improved selection and navigation auto depth. Light leaking issues fixed, and new profiling command line argument. And as usual, they always say this, again, just for the sake of like studio confidence. Industry ready. 4.5 is aligned with the VFX Reference Platform. Same thing every time, but it's nice just to remind people that it is appropriate and it is viable to use for studios that actually care about that. So Compositor, go procedural. All the procedural texture nodes you know and love from shaders and geometry nodes are now available in the Compositor. Excellent.
Oh yeah.
So that's brilliant. In particular, we've got white noise, so I'm quite happy to see about that. We've got the wave, the Voronoi, noise, magic gradient, Gabor, checker, brick. So yeah, that's great. Although I find it kind of funny, like the idea of adding noise into something in the Compositor, which I have done. But like,
Yeah, I think that's more to achieve like a quote unquote photography effect on renders,
yeah.
which I do
Yeah, for sure.
a lot.
One thing I often do is I denoise in the compositor, but I do it in a way where I can blend it on like a factor amount. And I find that I always leave it slightly back a bit. So there's still a little bit of noise just kept in there.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes it just makes it look better, you know? So compositing harmony. The compositor is now more unified than ever. Common nodes have been added and can be easily copied across shader and geometry node setups. So the following common nodes are now available: the vector math, rotate, mix vector, math, clamp, float curve, and black body. Cool. I use those quite a lot in the shader editor as well. So good to see.
I
Although
personally love them, especially the vector math stuff.
I know that, like, so one thing that I really want to get more powerful at, and you're probably really good at this, Sharon, is the float curve, because I tend to like never use it for my shader work, but I have seen other people's like procedural shaders where it makes like a huge impact. So yeah.
Most of the time it is basically wherever you have a black and white gradient, you can basically use it to shape stuff. So I think especially for you, when you're making procedural light nodes in Afterglow, I think there you can use float curve to create some really cool patterns.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll need to experiment with that. It'd also be cool to see how the float curve can like modify image input sources for the lights. I'll play with that. Plus these brand new nodes. So we got the image info, provides resolution, dimensions, and image transformations. Nice. Relative to pixel, converts values that are relative to the image size to be in pixels. Then image coordinates provides various types of pixel coordinates, including a normalized and integer pixel coordinates. So it's nice to see the compositor getting a bit more love. There was quite a large chunk of time where it was falling behind a few years back, but it seems like it's starting to kick up a bit more now, especially since we've also got the compositor in real time. It's actually kind of interesting thinking back to when we didn't have it in real time, which was not that long ago, to be fair. It makes a huge difference, like being able to visually see what's happening with real-time feedback. So again, more compositor features there that we can read through. And we've got a note here about the Blender extensions platform. So obviously this is not brand new. It was introduced some versions back, but it is a way of being able to have your add-ons updated in Blender. But there are some caveats to that. It's a separate platform. Add-on developers have to submit the add-on. It has to be compliant to the GPL license, and then has to go through a review process. And there's opportunity for people to suggest changes that need to be made to the add-on before it's approved onto the platform. But once it is, you can access it and discover it through your edit preferences in Blender. And then from there, it's basically like a management system where you can have them update so you don't need to go online and then re-download them again. So if you haven't heard about that, and if you haven't checked it out, it's worth taking a look at. We can actually click on that now and have a quick look. So we see Blender extensions here, and there's a lot of like really popular ones, just some that you'll use all the time, whereas there's some other like stranger ones, including a theme section, such as we can see the genuinely disgusting theme here, which I've seen on social media. It's brilliant. So there are like very serious things, but there's also a little bit of fun on the side, if you want to play around with that. So
I love how it's number 3.
yeah, it is quite
like popularity.
Yeah, 8,000 downloads there. Though it seems like it's not completely organized by popularity by the looks of it, which is interesting. But it clearly is popular. It looks like it's got some of the highest reviews. I like that. I bet the Midnight Blue one is really kind of cool as well.
It's really good. I use it. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll take a look on there a bit more. Will I ever put my add-ons on this extensions platform? Maybe. But if you've been watching my videos recently, you know that there's a whole thing about like getting me to get back into working on the free add-ons. So, if there's an opportunity for me to do it in the future, I'll look into it, but it's not on the top of my priority list at the moment. This release is a big one for Grease Pencil, featuring integration with the Compositor, introducing support for geometry nodes tools. Missing features have been brought back, and strokes look better than ever. So first of all, Pencil Perfect. A new render pass outputs the visible grease pencil strokes and fills into a separate layer. So you can access that here. The pass is useful for isolating, enhancing, or applying effects to grease pencil elements during compositing. So you can effectively keep the grease pencil data separate. So that's really cool. This allows you to perform like whatever operations you want on it. Full control. In addition to the render pass, grease pencil rendering can be completely disabled per view layer using the filter option, similar to surfaces, volumes, and other types. That's useful. And looking sharp, a new super sampling anti-aliasing. Did I say that right? I always second guess myself now. Anti-aliasing method improves line quality for smoother lines. Really cool. Let's take a little look here. Okay, so we've got good options. I mean, sometimes you want to keep it like, sharp, but I think it's good to kind of give the artistic control there. I mean, I guess that's up to you, because sometimes, I mean, if you're doing pixel art, like proper pixel art, you don't want super sampling, I guess. The SSAA sample count can be adjusted under the render properties, grease pencil. Note that the SSAA filter size is the same as the film filter size settings. Okay, this example uses 8 samples. And then of course, more grease pencil changes. And Blender has this benchmark system as well. So if you want to test how Blender works on your system, you can contribute that data towards these openly accessible benchmarks. Let's just take a quick little look there. This is completely optional, of course, but there's data here if you want to see how like different GPUs compare against the render software. It's quite cool to see actually, because Blender is involved quite a lot in benchmark processes. You might see this by watching like other technology YouTubers, especially ones that build computers. They tend to use Blender to do a lot of benchmark work. Not exclusively, but it is very useful for that. You can share and compare your score against over 250,000 openly accessible benchmarks. So yeah, if you want to contribute, you can. Next up, UV editing. UVs everywhere all at once. View UVs for the active or all selected objects in any mode at all times. So we can see that there. Clicking, selecting multiple, etc. Previously limited to edit mode, UVs are now visible across all object modes in the image editor's mask and paint views. UV's visibility and opacity can be controlled through the overlays popover. So that's up here. So the overlays popover is pretty much the same as the 3D view one, but it's accessible in the UV editor as well. So again, nice to see some like user experience parity there between the different editors. As usual, the splash screen artwork is available for download, and you can get the previous versions as well. That is available on blender.org/download/demo files. And then when you get here, you've got access to all the different things you can download, which includes the splash screen files and other things. So for example, like I use this wasp bot by Emiliano Colantoni quite a lot in some of my lighting work, but you can click on splash artwork there and it will take you down. So you can grab the DOGWALK one there if you like. And these are quite chunky files. So it's really nice for the Blender Foundation to like provide these. I mean, Blender is relatively heavy as well. I mean, it's not the heaviest software, but they must be like passing a lot of bandwidth to distribute this to everyone. So going down, point clouds. Okay, interesting. I don't know too much about this. Make your point. Meet point cloud, a new object type for representing large numbers of individual points in 3D space. So as far as I know, this was just a geometry nodes thing to begin with, point clouds. But now it seems like they've become important enough to become their own distinguished data type or object type. Checkpoint. Point cloud objects are much more performant than regular meshes. Each point in a point cloud can store data using attributes that define properties such as radius, position, color, and more. Future updates may expand support to include simulation systems like particles. Okay, so they're thinking more about like future-proofing the point system. So let's have a look at this quick little demo here for the Tokyo point cloud. Obviously, it's a little bit noisy because it's cycles rendering, but it seems like the entire thing is made out of points, which is really impressive. So I think there's so many different effects you could do with that. I really like the game series The Division, and it's not the only one that's done this, but there have been a lot of games where they kind of like recreate crime scenes out of point clouds and stuff. I always love like that kind of stylistic effect. You can add a point cloud object directly from the add menu in the 3D viewport or generate it procedurally using geometry nodes. See, that's the thing. It was always like traditionally a geometry nodes type thing, but it seems like it's important enough now to become its own thing. And there are even more features there. Oh, cool. There's a nice section for DOGWALK here as well, because DOGWALK, the thing that the splash screen is based on, is a video game made by the Blender Studio. The first one in quite a long time. Probably the first one that people are gonna like really know about, because Blender has gained so much more attention since Yo Frankie, the original game project back in the day when Blender had its own game engine. But you can get it on Steam. It's free to play, and there is a supporters pack as well. And importantly, we did our own video on it, so you can go and take a look. We played through it. It's only a very short game because it's just a demo, but artistically it's super cohesive. Like it's just like consistent across the board. You can tell it's definitely made by artists that put a lot of love and work into it. So definitely check it out. Okay, now for painting. So is this like texture painting or like sculpt painting? I bet we're going to find out. So Jitter Creeper. Painting in sculpt, vertex paint, and texture paint modes supports randomization of hue, saturation, and value either throughout the entire stroke or on a per stroke basis. Okay, so it looks like we're getting improvements to the paint tools across the board. So just from like a usability standpoint. Chop Chop. Manifold is the new fast solver for trim tools in sculpt mode. Its name comes from the term manifold. Well, Yes, also called watertight meshes, and refers to the limitation that it works best on this type of geometry. So I've heard as well that there's a new kind of Boolean mode, especially in the Boolean modifier, but I think they're kind of applying this everywhere where Boolean operations are used in Blender, where work gets done on like one system in Blender, it then propagates everywhere else where that's appropriate. So this is what it says here. It uses the same manifold library as the Boolean modifier and geometry node. So that's cool to see. It's much faster than the previous fast mode, now called float. So this new manifold option is fast for meshes which are just like entirely manifold, meaning that they don't have any gaps inside of them, and Blender doesn't have any problem distinguishing what's the outside from the inside of the object. So there's extra options here as well for like the paint tools. And now we're getting down to some user interface improvements. There have been some quite big things done here, but one that I do want to mention before we read it is that, you know, the corners of Blender, when we're splitting up the interface elements into different editors, and the corners are quite difficult to grab, they've made those bigger by default, which is way excellent. So Blender's user interface continues to get more polished, more intuitive, and more accessible than ever. First of all, easy frames. So adding nodes into frames is easier than ever. Just press F and give it a name. You don't have to. We're all very familiar with frames. You know, we use them all the time. They're great for organization and great for just explaining like what things do in the shader editor and the geometry nodes editor and the compositor. You can now create empty frames, labels are better positioned, and nested frames now alternate in value for easier reading. Clean workspace. Oh, that's really cool. Not using a tab in the properties editor, you can now hide the tab to reduce the clutter. I didn't know about that. That's cool. This is especially useful for tailoring the editor to specific workflows. For example, in the video editing workspace, you might hide the object and shading tabs to reduce visual noise. Tabs can be brought back at any time through the top right popover menu. Yeah, I like that because one of the things that Blender just excels at better than anything else is just its sheer amount of customization potential, especially since we have like the workflow tabs. And you know how much I love customizing the editor because, you know, we have our own tool, Modular Workspaces, which is designed purely for this, to expand the editor, to allow you to quick split the like 3D view into different sections and like auto load up your favorite preferences for different editors. So really great to see. Looks like the asset browser is also getting some love. So more at a glance, the asset and file browser now allows you to see more in two ways. Labels will now wrap to two lines, prioritizing the beginning and end to clearly show the file extension. Okay, that's clever. So it's kind of like maintaining the most important information from the actual file name or the asset name. A new horizontal list mode lets you fit more content on the screen and adjust the preview and column sizes individually. I was actually thinking about horizontal lists not that long ago, so it's kind of cool to feel like while I'm working in Blender and thinking about things that, oh, that's probably something that the developers have already thought about. I always have this kind of like shy feeling when it comes to suggesting features because I don't really want to like, you know, be too imposing or get in their way. So it's really nice when like things collide like that and, you know, I don't even need to ask. It just gets made. So quick capture. Oh, I saw this. This is really cool. So if you don't want to rely on Blender to auto-generate a thumbnail for you for your asset, or if it's something complex like a collection asset, you can actually just capture something inside of Blender and that will make it the thumbnail. So making previews for your assets just got much easier. Simply capture what's on the screen, no need to render. And while you're capturing that as well, you can have it locked to be like a square view or not. It will present it however it thinks it can for the actual asset. So that's really cool. There are also more UI changes across the board. Again, really appreciated. Although I do want to just say one thing about the spreadsheet. I would love it if the Blender spreadsheet editor was actually a spreadsheet, in which case we can enter formulas. It would have like a tick of like calculations for certain things, just because I'm using spreadsheets so often now. And a lot of the data in those spreadsheets are things that I might want to represent in Blender, but it would be nice to be able to actually just enter and work with that data in Blender, you know, properly mathematically. Blender's not really been designed for that, but I visualize a future where the current Blender spreadsheet, which is used for like previewing data mostly, and like real formulaic spreadsheet features might overlap. But I guess we'll see if that ever becomes a thing. And finally, if you're happy with all the updates coming to Blender and you want this to continue, again, like this is just like a slice of all the stuff in this update, and there's a whole lot of extra work behind the scenes, then you can donate to Blender. And yes, I do. So you should join me in the Dev Fund by donating monthly or just once, depending on what you have available. Of course, highly recommended. And if not this, if you want to get something a bit more back for your money, then the Blender Studio is also an option, because if you sign up to that subscription, you can get access to like files made by the Blender Studio team in their effort to produce like short film projects and now video game projects again, such as with DOGWALK. And finally, the but wait, there is more section, which always terrifies me, for the Python API section where they say breaking changes and see all changes. But obviously, again, here you can just kind of dive in and take a look at some of the extra features that haven't even been mentioned. And as I mentioned earlier, some of these things might end up being like really strong user experience drivers that just kind of fall under the radar. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the breaking Python changes. I'll need to investigate this. Always terrifies me. But again, as I usually say, if you noticed any of my add-ons stop working in 4.5, let me know. I mean, you can comment here, but it might be more useful if you go to codesholt.online/contact and let me know. Try not to get angry. It takes a while for these things to bubble to the surface and become apparent. So yes. So that is Blender 4.5. So if you made it to the end of this video, feel free to put let's do a unicorn emoji in the comments. It's our kind of traditional emoji, and if you do that, it will show me if you made it this far through the video. If you want, you can support my work on Patreon or just check out my own Blender add-ons and tools at codesholt.online/store. But yeah, otherwise, enjoy Blender 4.5. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.